The dust kicked up beneath my boots as I walked the fence line of Grandpa Joe's old farm. My farm now, though my family wouldn't let me forget how worthless they thought it was. 200 acres of Nevada desert, where nothing grew except stubborn sagebrush and family resentment. Hey dirt farmer. My brother Michael's voice carried across the property as his Mercedes kicked up gravel in my driveway. Still playing in the sand? I turned to watch him approach, his expensive suit looking ridiculous against the desert backdrop. At 35, Michael was the golden child of our family, Stanford MBA, successful investment banker, everything our parents had dreamed of. And I was Emma, the disappointment who had chosen to accept Grandpa's worthless farm instead of a cash buyout. What brings you all the way out here, Michael? I asked, already knowing the answer. The certified letter I'd sent the family had probably arrived this morning. This ridiculous lawsuit, he spat, waving the papers. You're actually trying to block the sale of the surrounding properties? Have you lost your mind? I smiled, thinking of what lay beneath our feet. The secret Grandpa Joe had shared with me just before he died. The real reason he'd left me the farm instead of his more successful grandchildren. Just protecting my interests, I replied calmly. You know, being a good steward of the land. Michael laughed, the sound harsh against the quiet desert morning. Steward? Emma, this is worthless dirt. The only value this land has is if we sell it to the developers. Mom and Dad need that money. Of course they did. Ever since Grandpa had surprised everyone by leaving me the farm in his will 6 months ago, my parents had been furious. They'd planned to sell all the family holdings to a luxury housing developer, already spending the promised millions in their minds. Your sister hasn't worked a real job in years, Mom had said at the reading of the will. She can't handle running a farm. What they didn't know was that while I was getting my useless geology degree, I had been studying more than just rocks. I'd been studying Grandpa Joe's careful notes, his detailed surveys, the strange instruments he kept in his basement workshop. Remember, Emma, he told me during our last conversation, his voice weak but his eyes sharp as ever. Sometimes the real treasure isn't what grows on the land. It's what lies beneath it. I'd spent the last 6 months confirming what Grandpa had suspected, that beneath this worthless dirt lay one of the largest lithium deposits in North America. Every major tech company, every electric vehicle manufacturer, they all needed what was under my feet. The developers are offering $20 million for the whole valley, Michael continued, following me as I walked toward the old barn. Your share alone would be enough to finally do something meaningful with your life. I stopped at the barn door, remembering all the hours I'd spent here with Grandpa, learning about mineral surveys and geological formations while my siblings chased money in the city. And what makes you think I'm not doing something meaningful right now? He gestured around at the dusty landscape. This? Emma, you live in Grandpa's old house, drive his ancient truck and spend your days wandering around empty fields. Meanwhile, I closed 3 major deals just this morning. I unlocked the barn, breathing in the familiar scent of old wood and machinery. How's the electric car company account going? I asked innocently. Michael's face darkened. We lost it. Some new battery manufacturer offered them better terms. But that's not Dash. Let me guess, they found a new lithium supply? He stared at me suspiciously. How do you know about that? I walked over to Grandpa's old desk, where geological surveys lay scattered across its surface. Maybe I pay attention to more than just dirt. What are you up to, Emma? Michael picked up one of the papers, his eyes narrowing as he tried to decipher the technical diagrams. Nothing you need to worry about, I said, taking the survey from his hands. Just tending to my worthless dirt. The truth was, 3 major mining companies had already confirmed Grandpa's discovery. The preliminary surveys suggested the lithium deposit could be worth billions, far more than any luxury housing development. But my family was too busy looking down their noses at my failed life to notice what was happening right under their feet. Mom and Dad are running out of patience, Michael warned. If you don't agree to the sale, they'll contest the will. They'll claim Grandpa wasn't competent when he left you the farm. I thought about the careful documentation Grandpa had left, the way he had quietly transferred the mineral rights to me years ago, long before any questions of competency could be raised. They can try, I replied. But Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. Michael's phone buzzed, probably another important business call. But before he could answer it, a convoy of trucks appeared on the horizon, heading toward my property. "What's that?" he asked, squinting against the sun. "Probably just some guys interested in dirt," I said casually, knowing full well it was the geological survey team I'd hired. The same team that would soon announce the biggest lithium discovery in recent history. "Emma." Michael's voice held a warning note. "What aren't you telling us?" I thought about all the family dinners where they'd mocked my choices. The Christmas parties where they'd asked when I was going to get a real job. The countless times they'd called this land worthless while sitting on a fortune they were too blind to see. "You should go, Michael," I said, watching the trucks grow larger. "I have work to do." "Work?" He laughed again. "Is that what you call playing in the dirt?" If he had bothered to really look at those survey maps, he might have noticed the careful grid patterns, the marked test sites, the preliminary core samples that proved what lay beneath the surface. But like the rest of my family, Michael only saw what he expected to see: worthless dirt and a failed sister. "You know," I said as he turned to leave, "Grandpa used to say that people are like mining claims. The ones that look worthless on the surface sometimes turn out to be the most valuable." "Grandpa said a lot of things," Michael replied dismissively. "That's why we're selling this place, to finally turn his nonsense into something useful." I watched him drive away, his Mercedes stirring up dust clouds that obscured his view of the survey trucks. In less than a week, those trucks would prove that the real nonsense had been underestimating this land and me. My phone buzzed with a message from the survey team leader. "Initial results confirm everything. This is bigger than we thought." I smiled, patting the worn wood of the barn door. Grandpa had known all along what my family was too arrogant to see: that true value isn't always visible to those who only look at the surface. The next family dinner was going to be very interesting indeed. 1 week later, I sat at my parents' dining room table, watching my family pass around their favorite dishes while discussing my stubbornness, as if I wasn't there. The weekly family dinner had become a strategy session for pressuring me to sell the farm. "The developers are getting impatient," my father announced, cutting into his steak. "If we don't move quickly, they'll pull their offer." My sister-in-law Linda, Michael's wife, touched up her lipstick between bites. "20 million is more than generous for that wasteland. Emma's just being difficult." I stayed quiet, thinking about the paperwork sitting in my truck outside. The geological surveys had confirmed everything Grandpa had suspected. We were sitting on roughly $40 billion worth of lithium. The mining rights alone would be worth more than the entire valley. "I got another call from the lawyer today," my mother added, her voice sharp with disapproval. "He says Emma's filed some kind of mineral rights claim. Can you believe it? As if there's anything valuable in that dirt." Michael smirked over his wine glass. "Probably found some pretty rocks. Remember when she used to collect those as a kid? Always said they were special." "They were special," I said quietly. "Just like Grandpa's instruments were special. The ones you all sold at his estate sale for pocket change. The instruments that had first detected the lithium deposit, that had guided Grandpa's careful mapping of the underground treasure. My family had been so eager to sell off what they saw as an old man's junk that they'd practically given away equipment worth thousands." "Oh honey," my mother sighed, "you need to let go of these fantasies. The farm isn't some magical place. It's just land, dead, worthless land that could finally do some good if you just sign the papers." I pulled out my phone and checked the time. Right about now the evening news would be starting. I turned on the dining room TV, another uncouth habit my family loved to criticize. "Emma," my father started, but then the news anchor's voice cut through the room. "Breaking news. What might be the largest lithium deposit in North America has been discovered in Nevada. Sources say the deposit, estimated to be worth billions, was found on private property owned by Emma Harrison." The sound of shattering glass filled the room as Michael's wine glass slipped from his hand. Linda's fork clattered against her plate. My mother's face went pale as security footage from my farm appeared on screen, showing the survey teams and their equipment. "Initial reports suggest the deposit could revolutionize America's electric vehicle industry," the anchor continued. "Multiple tech companies are already in talks with the property owner." "Turn it off," my father demanded, his voice shaking. "Why?" I asked calmly. "Don't you want to hear about my worthless dirt?" Michael stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "He knew. You knew all along, didn't you?" "Knew what, Michael? That there was value in something you couldn't see? That maybe Grandpa wasn't as senile as you all claimed when he left me the farm. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her phone. We need to call the lawyers. The will. There must be something. The mineral rights were transferred to me 5 years ago, I cut in. Long before any questions about Grandpa's competency. He knew exactly what he was doing. But the developers, my father sputtered. The contracts are worthless, I finished for him. Just like my farm, right? Linda was frantically Googling on her phone. $40 billion, she whispered. The lithium deposit is worth $40 billion? Actually, I corrected her, that's just the preliminary estimate. Could be more once full surveys are completed. Michael paced the room, his perfect suit now wrinkled with stress. This isn't fair. You don't know how to handle something like this. You need us, our business experience, our connections. I laughed, the sound echoing off the expensive walls of the house they'd bought with borrowed money and broken promises. You mean like how you handled Grandpa's equipment? Selling off millions in specialized geological instruments for garage sale prices. My mother reached across the table trying to take my hand. Sweetheart, we're family. We should deal with this as a family. I pulled away, remembering all the times they'd excluded me from family decisions because I was just playing in the dirt, instead of working in finance like Michael. Family. I stood up, pulling out the stack of papers I'd brought with me. Let me show you how family has treated me. I laid out printouts of every mocking text message, every belittling email, every social media post where they'd ridiculed my choices. Here's Michael calling me a failure for studying geology. Here's Linda telling her friends I'm the family embarrassment. Here's Mom and Dad's message to the extended family about how I'm wasting my life on Grandpa's worthless farm. They stared at the evidence of their cruelty spread across the dining table, their faces shifting between shame and calculation. Emma. My father tried again, his voice taking on the tone he used for business negotiations. Let's discuss this rationally. The family could form a corporation, pool our expertise. No. I gathered the papers back up. I already have partners, actual experts in mining and sustainable extraction. People who saw value in the land before they knew what was beneath it. Michael's face darkened. You're making a huge mistake. You need us. Actually, I pulled out one final document, the preliminary agreement with a major tech company. I don't. But you need me, don't you? Especially now that your investment firm is about to lose that big electric car account. The color drained from his face. How did you know about that? I pay attention, Michael. To everything. Including how your firm has been shorting lithium stocks, betting against exactly what I just found. My mother started crying, perfectly timed tears that had worked on me so many times before. We're your family, Emma. You can't just shut us out. I walked to the window looking out at my truck, Grandpa's old truck that they'd mocked me for keeping. Family works both ways. Where was this concern for family when you were calling my education worthless? When you were telling everyone I was throwing my life away? When you were trying to force me to sell the only thing Grandpa thought I was worthy of having? The news continued playing in the background, detailing how the lithium discovery could transform the entire region. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from reporters, industry executives, and suddenly interested distant relatives. What are you going to do? Linda asked, her voice small. I turned back to face them. I'm going to do exactly what Grandpa taught me: value what's beneath the surface, even when others can't see it. But the family dash, my father started. We'll be fine, I cut him off. The developers can still build their luxury homes, just not on my land. You can all keep your perfect houses and expensive cars. But the farm and everything beneath it stays with me. I picked up my keys, ready to leave them with their shattered illusions. But I had one last thing to say. You know what the funny thing is? If any of you had bothered to actually visit the farm, to see what Grandpa was working on instead of dismissing him as a foolish old man, you might have discovered this yourselves. But you were too busy looking down at my worthless dirt to see what was right under your feet. As I drove home that night, my phone kept buzzing with their messages, alternating between threats and pleas, accusations and apologies. I turned it off, enjoying the quiet desert night. The farm's lights glowed in the distance, welcoming me home. Grandpa's old geological instruments, the ones I'd quietly bought back from their garage sale buyers, sat ready in the barn for tomorrow's surveys. You were right, Grandpa, I whispered to the stars. Sometimes the real treasure isn't what people can see. Sometimes it's what they're too blind to look for. The next morning, as executives in expensive suits toured my worthless property and reporters captured aerial footage of the survey sites, I stood in Grandpa's workshop, now my office, and smiled at his old photo on the wall. He had taught me that true value isn't always visible on the surface, whether in land or in people. My family had been so busy judging both of us by their shallow standards that they'd missed the fortune right beneath their feet. But that was their loss. After all, some people are like lithium deposits, their true worth only revealed to those who take the time to look deeper.